Yes, I think we're live.
I see.
Hello. Yay, we did it. Hey, everybody. My name's Amy, and I am here to welcome you to Modern Movement Makers. If you are new to this community, welcome. And I have my friend Rachel here from Southern California now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. And we are here to have a bit of a conversation. And if you're new to Modern Movement Makers and you are kind of like, what is this? Well, welcome to my living room. Welcome to Rachel's living room. We are people of movement and action. So let me tell you a little bit about what Modern Movement Makers is, the vision behind it. If you are joining us, please let us know where you're coming from, because we are from all over the place. I'm talking to you from Michigan, and that is actually where I met Rachel. And I'm so honored to be with Rachel today. And we have just been really enjoying each other's company. The last several months we've been meeting to chat, and I'm just so glad that you guys are going to get to hear her story. So Modern Movement Makers is a community. We are movement makers. We put movement to mission, and we want to create waves of inspired action of love and compassion and healing and growth. We are basically hope dealers. That's what we like to call ourselves. And we do that in so many different ways. And it's our mission to just help our voices shine. And that's going to be available to anybody who is willing to share their story. So we come with our imperfect selves and our imperfect lives. And we just really want to share hope and love with you all today. So Rachel is such a dear friend of ours. We met here in Michigan. Both our husbands are musicians. And we met at church, and her husband was on the team with my husband, and we just started building this really awesome friendship. And I just love her so much. And she has a sweet little almost 2-year-old now. So they have become parents, and it's just been such a joy to get to see them in full parent mode lately. And I'm just so grateful to have you here, Rachel. So just tell everybody who is here and watching. I will be watching comments. I'll be able to see your comments. So if you want to say hello to Rachel or I, feel free, and we'll just get started. So tell us a little bit about your life, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Well, I grew up in New York City, and grew up there. I was born and raised there, and talk about movement. Slowly made my way from there to basically what's considered mid-state New York. There's different terms for it, where I went to university, so I could get away from my family a little bit, explore, grow a little bit in college, as we do, but not be too far away. And I thought I would always be in New York, yet here I am in California. I never thought I would be here, like never crossed my mind until about 2 years ago or so, when my husband was going into school, and this was one of the options for his job. Yeah, I was like, what is it called? The employment opportunity. So we went from New York, and from New York we went to different places, moved to different places, and made it to Michigan for my husband's PhD program, where I grew a lot. I was a librarian for about, I want to say maybe 5 years between New York and Michigan, and it was fun because I never thought I was going to be a librarian. I went to school to be a forensic anthropologist because a joke I had with my friend, a few of my friends, was that I like human bones, and it was just fascinating to me. And part of that was like I wanted to help people, and I realized that my passion for books and reading was greater. And so I pursued that, and became a librarian because you have to get a master's. And I was like, oh, okay. And I've always been really grateful for the opportunity I had to be a librarian because I felt like that opened a lot of doors that I know is not really common for even my colleagues and peers. And I know for me that personally, that's God in my life. Like he's just kind of saying like, hey, like I got you. And so that has been really reassuring. Even now that I'm I'm not working currently as a librarian, I am working as a book reader to my daughter. And instilling that passion for books to my daughter, which is kind of exciting to see that flourish in her. But yeah, we became parents in Michigan and then made our way out here to California. So we're
and we swapped
yeah.
So for those of you that don't know our story, we are native Southern California residents. We lived in Ventura County, and then we 4 years ago took a leap of faith and moved our family to Michigan to be on mission. Music missionaries is how I kind of call our family. And we just took the call, and we felt called to be here. So God's always moving in our lives. And so that actually is, I've heard so many stories from you, and you're such a great reader, but you're also such a great storyteller. So let's go into like the movement part, because, and it's not just about moving locations physically, it's about so much more than that, right? So what purposeful movement have you made, present or past, that you could share with us, and what moves your spirit?
Yeah, so it's funny because the physical movement for me has really been something that touched base with the spiritual aspects of that too. Because so my husband and I, this is kind of insane to say, I was talking to Amy earlier. We'll be married for a decade in June this year, which is like mind blowing because it's like, wow, that's a lot of time. but then also like not a lot of time, knowing like, but so. In our first year of marriage, like within that first year, my husband had, I'm trying to think of the word, like he basically stopped going to school, like stopped going to his undergrad program so he could provide. And so for us, like our small family of two, and so he would work, so he could work and instead of be going to school and then us like, trying to figure things out from there, which was great. But then he had it on his heart that he wanted to go back and finish his degree, at least his undergrad. But he wasn't sure at the time what he wanted to do beyond that, but he just wanted to finish it. And I was like, what is wrong with you? I was not supportive. I was basically bitter and angry because we had a wonderful community where we were living, a wonderful church. Like he had a job. We had a great apartment. Like it was above a canning garage, but it was good. It was like a place to live. And it was affordable. And so it was just, he didn't like say we're going and like, that's it. Like, he never like that. But it was just more of like an invitation to have a conversation, but I was not interested in the invitation to the conversation. So it was, and so I was just like arbitrarily, it was like, we'll talk about it next year. Like, I don't even want to like pray about this. I don't want to talk about it. And so Jin, being my husband, being the kind person he is, he didn't bring it up again. He just kind of was just, I'm pretty sure he prayed on it for it on his own, like just for like wisdom and to see if this was the direction for our family or if like, I was correct or anything. And so, the year, so we talked about it in the fall, and so the next year came, and I was just like grumbling and did not want to talk about it, and I was very upset because background is I grew up in New York City. I've never moved, or like when I moved, I was 3, and it was within Staten Island. I was young enough that I didn't remember, so I was in the same place my whole life, like before college, and I never really moved, and Jin, my husband, he is like not the master of moving, but he was always moving. He was born in Korea, came, and he moved many times within Korea, came here to America, moved several times. And so he's used to moving.
Family, but you kind of he's moved around like a sort of like a military
on
family.
his own. Yeah. So he's like used to it. So he didn't see the, like, basically what the big deal was. Like, he's like, this is just what we do. Like, as in, that's what he was used to. And I was like, no, this is not what we do. And so, but then, the next year came, and we, I was just like, true to the word, like, we started talking about it again, except I was just like, no, I still was just like, no, I didn't really want to pray about it. I was just like so upset. So I just felt like I almost got tricked in the sense of like, I can't believe you're like taking me away from my like friends and like community, because I'm like, we're both big on community. Wherever we've been, wherever we go. And so like what happened, and this is something that's defined our relationship and marriage, in the sense that wherever we go in terms of community, we always reach out to people who have more experience than us, or whatever, like whether they're in the same plane of life, or however it's called, or the next stages, or like beyond the next stages, like all the way at the end, like just for wisdom. Like we invite them over for dinner or a meal, and we just like talk over food, which is also something we do everywhere we go, for community building.
We loved getting to know you guys. And my favorite memory, Rachel, was when you guys had a bunch of people over at your apartment, and we made dumplings.
Yes.
And our kids were
very creative. Very creative about the dumplings.
And it was so fun to learn how to make those. And it's a process, man.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, so we had invited people over. We talked to people we knew, like just to kind of get an idea of like what to do. Like we just wanted to know what to do. Like we received lots of advice. We even went down to the I guess it's a city that the university was, which is actually the university we both met at. It's just that I was like, I'm not going back there. Like, but we went back just to like talk with some people we knew there too, like couples and people, and just the best advice. We received lots of advice, but some of the greatest advice we received was I'm trying to think how it went exactly. Whatever you decide, because it's a lot of times it's black. I like to make things black and white, and I have the tendency to be very legalistic, which is work in progress. But a lot of things are gray. A lot of things are gray, and I've come to in my short life realize that. But it's still a work in process. It's still a journey. And for me, it's just what they said was basically, or one of the couples had said was, whatever you decide, because it's gray, whatever you decide, in a year from now, don't go, oh, that sucked. Like, I can't believe, and then just kind of like grumble. Like, I mean, I was grumbling now, but like to grumble more in a year from now, be like, oh, I can't believe we decided that. Like, this was the worst decision, blah, blah, blah. It's just whatever you decide, because a lot of things are gray. There are certain things that are black and white, but the gray things, don't regret it and live in the state of regret.
Right.
It's like detrimental to everyone.
And it's okay. Making choices are okay, and there's different seasons that
it's hard. It's hard to make a decision when you know that sometimes, or the thought in your head is there's a bad decision, or like you're thinking to yourself, yes, there's two choices and there's a good one and a bad one, because there's always a good one and a bad one. Sometimes it could be that there's a good one and a better one. Right.
And really, when it comes down to it, it comes down to fear. We fear what we don't know is coming ahead of us. So how can we make that transition or that move in faith, and knowing that we can take the next best step, that will be out of love and compassion, and not out of those other places that are not so your higher self.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't actually know. I mean, I know in a sense that God has changed my heart. I just don't know. Like, there wasn't like a specific thing. Like, we would go travel because we were in around Syracuse, New York, and we were thinking about going down to Binghamton, New York. So that's an hour and a half drive. Not a big deal for me growing up in New York City. An hour and a half is not a big deal when the commute is like longer. So so we would drive down and make that intentional move, like drive just to like explore the area. I was open to that at least. I was like, oh, okay, fine, we'll do that. But in one of the drives, I just remember stepping out of the car and looking at a neighborhood and being like, I think I can see myself in this area. And knowing that, like, and when I had that thought and had that peace, like, for me, it came from God. I knew it was going to be okay. Like, it was all going to be okay. Like,
God's always got us. And it's like we're his kids going like, are you sure? Are you sure? Is this
and I will clarify, it didn't make it easy. Like, the move, it was still hard to move. It was still hard to just not be in the place where my community, my best friends were. But every place that he's taken me since, and after that move, it was just like after the move to Binghamton, when Jen was just like, at the time we thought we weren't sure if we were going to Georgia or Michigan, but I was just like, God changed my heart. That's fine. Like, we can go wherever. Like, I mean, I had so much peace to the point that even in Michigan, when we actually moved twice, that Jin actually said that he didn't want to move anymore. And I was just like, we can move whenever. We basically swapped. Like, and I think part of that is that he moved so much, he's ready to settle down. At that point, I mean, now we're in our dream home, so we are settled, like, for as long as we are.
And you talked a little bit about it, but I think I'll mention that, is there any, like, you've mentioned a handful of fears already, but I thought this would be good to kind of dive into this a little bit. And how have you gotten past some of what was the process at which you said that you said nothing really was like a boom, like it happened, but how did you feel like you came to that place, or how did you deal with your fears in this process of moving to all these places?
Well, I think so there's two different things here. For the moving part, it was just the intentional action of like doing small things, not knowing that it would have a big impact. So like the fact that we were intentionally still driving down to this area over time, it was just kind of like became like, okay, like, I don't like moving. That hasn't changed, but like, but we will be okay. And just having that peace was some like overwhelming peace. I'm not talking about like, oh, it's gonna be okay. Like, overwhelming, like, it's going to be okay. Was something that, like, I mean, I can still like go back to like, okay, like, it'll be okay now, like, whatever I'm going through. But for a lot of fears, I have a lot of fears. We could be here all day, but I will not tell you all my fears.
Maybe just talk about one of those that you kind of like worked on.
But in general, for me, like, when I have, I mean, part of it for me is like having community to point me back to I have various forms of community, but in general, my main community, like, I have close friends that will point me back to the truth in God, like, of who I am in him, who Jesus is, like, that he is, like, he loves me as I am right now, like, in these things that, like, when I'm having an anxiety attack and I'm crying and praying is praying. So when I am crying and praying, it's just that, and to also, like, not be like, don't fear, but to accept it, and allow it to run its course. Like, even if it is an anxiety attack, anxiety attack, to breathe, and breathe in, like, and just like remember. So for me, it's like, and I know this is like a future question, sorry, but to meditate on. So for me, it's meditating on the Bible. When I read it, like there's certain, I'm part of a Bible study. So there are verses that I memorize and that like come to mind. And I have memorized over the past that friends have sent me that I'm like, that have just become part of like my practice, I guess, of when I'm going through that I take to God what is God's, because
Mhm.
there's certain things like, when like someone crosses your path,
Yep.
and it's like, do I retaliate right away? Do I say something? It's like, okay, take it to God first and get wisdom first. And that's like something that's been helpful for me with facing any fear, or any issue. And not that I'm doing it perfectly, because obviously I'm like, I feel like I'm a hot mess half the time, most of the time, more than
This,
half.
that kind of work is messy. And actually I was just listening, speaking of books, I'm reading a book right now by Hal Elrod called The
Oh
Miracle.
yeah, yes.
Oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the title of it.
It's blue.
Oh, Blue. Oh yeah.
The morning minute or something.
It's
The
called
librarian is.
The Miracle Equation. Hal Elrod wrote a book called The Miracle Equation, and I'm on like chapter 3, and he talked exactly about what you're talking about right now. He was talking about how the resistance of not either accepting emotions or accepting what's going on, your circumstance, if you just resist it, then that's not going to help you move past the mental state you need to be in to make a decision or to move past the fear or whatnot. So it's the first thing, and his story is unbelievable, and he talks about it in the book. But he had like a near-death experience to where he woke up in a hospital bed basically one day, and his doctors, he basically has Matt's story. My husband has a story. It's very similar to his. It is Matt's to share, but Hal shared it in his book. And he woke up with this completely crazy circumstance. And he came up with this 5-minute rule. And this 5-minute rule that he came up with was to let yourself feel the feelings, let yourself, you can cry, you can moan, you can complain, you can whatever, get it out on paper, whatever, slam your head in the pillow, whatever you want to do to get rid of that for 5 minutes. He literally would set a timer for 5 minutes
Yeah.
and let himself do that. And then after that, he told himself, he would repeat these words: I cannot change it. And so he conditioned his mind, and he would do that every time he would feel an overwhelmed moment or like a time of transition or change. And he just kept doing this over and over and over, and came to realize that sometimes he needed more than 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, I get that. Like, I mean, for me, it's like if I'm having a crying session, sometimes it's just like I get through that point, and then there's a story in the Bible about Joshua after he's like the next leader, and he's just like, I'm terrified, and God's like, get up. And so I tell myself like, okay, like get up, like as in, I mean, not as in like a harsh love sort of thing, but like, or tough love thing. It's just more of like, all right, let's figure out what the next right step is.
Right.
And then sometimes it's like going back and crying some more. Like,
And
but then like figuring
yeah,
it out.
yeah. And his thing is like kind of what you're saying. Like you can't resist what's the circumstance is, but you don't have to stay there. You don't have to live in that. You can live through it.
Mm-hmm.
We will always have fear. We have to like almost make friends with fear, right? So that we can say, oh, hi, fear. I see you. Yeah, I see you, but you're not going to have hold on me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think with, I mean, not I think, it's like more like I know, having a daughter, like my daughter, just as she's getting closer to 2, her feelings, like she's little, and the big feelings in a little person, and it's like already hard enough for an adult. I can't imagine for a child. And just, I know with, once she was born, it made me realize more that I need to like be actively working on me, and like Jen and I, like us, my husband and I, working on our marriage and everything, so that we're we have some chance of helping our daughter with like when that stuff comes along, because she has big emotions, but if I don't understand what's going on with me, if I can't take care of me, like it's not going to help her in the long run. And I want to give her some chance of being able to understand, even if we're both working on it at the same time, or something like that.
Well, I definitely thank you so much for sharing. That is so amazing. And I hear first and foremost from your story that really what moves you is coming back to the truth, coming back to God, coming back to no matter when you get in those moments in life where, you're either, struggling with the next season or, I hear in your voice that you are really wanting to come back to the truth and the truth that is inside of you. And so that's amazing. And I want to ask you, I know I jump around a lot, so I'm glad that you're the same.
You're fine.
How do you experience support and love as you live out your story, Rachel?
Well, especially in this time where it's harder to meet in person. Like you probably can't even tell, I am an introvert. So I, in some ways, like I'm okay with being by myself. Having a child makes it a little trickier because it's like the value on silence has increased, like in pure silence has increased in the past 2 years, 2 years. And, but even as an introvert, I like people. I like to talk with people. I like to connect with people. I know it's been harder for my husband, who is an extrovert, to thrive in this season, and it is hard too, like to realize because both of us, as I've said, we are community oriented. We like our community, and for me, like it's we have sort of started to establish community in California before everything shut down. But the community group I had from church at Michigan, like we all had our babies at the same time. Okay, not
I
all,
remember because we were there.
Say all of us, most
Woo!
of us.
That was a lot of babies. One room.
Not all of us. I will not speak a lie. But, most of the group had babies at the same time, and it's like for me it's so wonderful because now I can stay connected with them and be like, is this normal? Or even just like this just happened, and like, can you pray for us? And it's just it adds a different like level to the relationship, I guess, because like we just kind of all went through it we were pregnant like pretty much at the same time and all that. And then so there's that community group in Michigan, and I have my really close friends in New York that I stay connected with, and it's just that's part of my foundation of like I need prayer,
And that's how you
like
love, by being seen, by being heard by community. And that's so important. And I know that that's our mission here in Modern Movement Makers. We want to build a community around people who want to bring hope and inspiration and healing and growth. And sometimes that takes some effort and initiation. And that takes we want to mutually support each other here and share these stories. And so I just am so thankful that you're willing to be in this community with us. And as it grows and evolves and all of that, I just am so excited to see all the things that's going to happen with it. And I know too that when it comes to sitting in community, it's really important to me that the table is open for everyone. Like there is no one excluded. I know we share authentically about, I have a story, Rachel has a story, other people who have been in this community have stories, and they're not going to be like mine. Nobody's story is the same. And so I just appreciate everyone here there's a couple of people watching already, and I know that some of you have been watching. Maybe you've watched previous videos and friends that have come into this community. But feel free, if you're inspired, send some love to some of these people in this community, and we'll just be there to support. So also I wanted to ask, what gives you hope? Because you've shared about so much transition. So what gave you hope in that transition? I mean, you shared a little bit of those things, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's just sort of like, for me, it always goes. It's funny because I find it funny, at least. I don't know, maybe no one else will. But I am currently, I know it's the middle of January, but I am currently doing, when I'm not doing my Bible study, I'm doing an Advent study. And I know Advent is usually done in December, but my reasoning was, I was doing a different study in December, but my reasoning is also like, it's Advent. And what is Advent? Advent is this yearning and hoping and expectation of Jesus returning. And for me, that gives me hope because he met me where I was at. He came and met me at, and he meets all of us where we're at, but like when we accept that. But he loves me as I am, and he took on all the bad stuff, because I mean, I know people like a lot of times look at me and they're like, you're so kind, you're so generous, you're so like, and maybe you're listening to this and you're like, no. And that's fine too. But it's like, and this is like also goes back to the community thing of like being able to be real and comfortable with them and get this kind of touch base for truth aspects too. But I'm not like, when I am been burnt, like not burnt out necessarily, but just like parenting like for so many hours, or like even like with Jin, like when we were first, like now and when we were first married, not like I can be very not kind. So but it's and like with rage, with anger, with all those things, with frustration, when it comes to a certain peak and realizing all that like stuff that's inside. I mean, I can just like I was actually just talking to my community about this, like about, I could suppress it, I could hide it, but that helps no one, particularly myself. But
A long way is all it does.
Yeah. And the more important thing is to share it. And I guess this goes back to sharing the story too, but sharing it, because that kind of helps the power of shame lose its, well, the shame lose its power, basically, because it's like, it's out there. And if we're honest, probably we, like, a lot more people have that too. And it's just like, what do you, but then it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm angry, like what do I do now? And so for me, it's just, what gives me hope is that because Jesus died for not just me, everyone, and they're like all that like dirt, like all the bad stuff that it usually only comes up when it's like triggered, right? When there's like a little like whatever mixing that it comes up to the surface, something will trigger it.
Yep.
And the only way like is, I forgot like where I was going for a moment. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's just no.
Like,
That's really,
Jesus
really
came. Jesus came for me, for you, for like whatever, for that, like because of that. We can try to fix it on our own. I can try to fix it on my own for a little bit, but I do a pretty shoddy job. I do a pretty bad job doing it on my own.
So I'm actually healing right now. Like back on my table, I've got a journal because I was being triggered by some things some memories that were coming of something that had happened, and it was triggering something in me. And I knew, because I've gone through this past year a healing process, and I know I've shared it with you a little bit, but I use a system called core wound healing. It's like a journaling practice, and there's 6 keys involved in it. And it's just been such a gift to my life. And there are so many amazing things happening within this community. But just this morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to heal that. I need to spend some time with that
Mhm.
and get it out so that I can heal forward. And
Mhm.
it's a process that that you're right. Like once we put it out there and acknowledge it, then it puts everybody on the same, like no one's above healing. Like we all need to heal, no matter
Mhm.
where we are, what we grew up with, whatever. But we're these amazing humans, and life is rough on us, and we're rough on ourselves. And then
Mhm.
we can either heal, or we can either continue living in fear or hurting others or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's awesome that you acknowledge taking the shame away and just dealing with it and owning it.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, like just realizing that, Jesus takes that when
Mhm.
he died, he took that and
Mhm.
then he overcame it. One of my biggest fears of all, my phobias, was like growing up, was death. And like for him to be like, I got this, got that one too. I see you, I got that one too. And take that on and not just go and be like, all right, bye. He gives us the gift of his spirit to say, like, all right, this is just like a down payment of I'm coming back. I'm here, like I will be with you now, like at any time. And he's coming back. And that's what like Advent, like that study, like it gives me hope, because I'm doing this like on the side, because I'm doing like many things. I like to read. So I'm like
That's
reading too
also
many
why
books at the same time. Reading too many books at the same time, but still, like, it's so it that
we're
gives me hope, knowing that it's not just like a done deal. Like he's not like he goes back to being God over out there, and we're just left to ourselves. As like he was just a great teacher long ago. He's present with us now if we choose him now. And so for me, that's like, I need you now. Like when I'm having those ugly cray prays, or I need him now, and he's there. He's here now. And like when it's not like he's speaking this voice. I mean, I know some people have that. Like I'm not. It for me, it's always been small steps, and
Mhm.
hopefully the right direction. If I'm going the wrong direction, hopefully someone will come in my way. Usually my husband or someone to shepherd me back to the right path.
Yeah, and that leads really nicely into like this question about how are you making waves of inspired action with what you're talking about. I mean, you're talking about so many things that are no, I'm saying that are like these little actions, like you said, like make these little ripples, these little action steps make a huge wave and can
Yeah.
heal generations. If you do the work yourself and lean into who you are, who you are, who God made you to be, and who you are supposed to be, then you are really creating waves. And I've learned so much being, born and raised in Southern California. I've spent a lot of time at the beach and a lot of time in personally contemplating just the ebbs and flows of the ocean. And that's part of why I wanted to create this community, to just create more waves of that. Of Oh, you frozen. Ooh, did I lose you? Oh, you're there. I hear you. Oh, I can kind of see. I can hear you now, though. So why don't you tell us how do you make ripples and waves in your particular story and world? Oh, did I lose you, Rachel? Oh, there you are. You're back. Oh, oh, we might have lost you. Let's see. Oh, we were so close. Okay, everyone. Well, if we lost her, it was so good spending time with Rachel, and it looks like you froze a little bit, Rachel. You want me to see if I can, let's see if I can get her back in here real quick. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. Let's see. Oh, I can hear you now. Oh, it was so close. Okay. If it's not going to let us continue, then maybe, Rachel, how it keeps freezing on us. I had a couple more questions I was going to ask you before we got off, but I was going to ask a couple of things, and if you don't end up coming back, shoot, then we will. Oh, wait a minute. Now you're back.
Oh, is it working now?
Yeah.
I was like, I went to click something. And I'm like, oh, maybe that worked. I had no idea.
That's okay. No, that's okay. We're still here and we're fine. It's so great having so much of your heart here. I just so love you and know that you're doing amazing. You're doing an amazing job being a mom, first of all. And that is like
Well, thank you.
huge, huge, undertaking. So how do you want to take inspired action in the world? How are you making waves, in your opinion?
Well, for backstory for this, back when we first moved to California, about, I guess now it's a year and a half ago almost, we were like, okay, we need to like have community like we had in Michigan. So plug, and you can't force community. But I basically like mostly burnt ourselves out because Jin was his job had just started, and we had a newborn who was less than a year, so it was just a recipe for disaster. So that when the following year and this pandemic happened, the pandemic was already going on, but the stay-at-home order started, the quarantine started in mid-March. I was like, my initial reaction is like, what are we supposed to do? Like, what is the Christian right thing to do? And because again, black and white, am I supposed to be out there serving people, doing like, healing the sick, like doing something else? And my husband gently was just like, I don't think we're called to do that. I think we need to work on ourselves and rest in this season. And I'm very grateful for that, because I needed that. We needed that as a family, but I needed to just slow down and reassess me and like what I was doing, what my goal was for not just like my life, but like also parenting and our marriage, like things like that. Just like figure out what to do, because well, again, wisdom from my husband, which is from God, but he was just like, we don't realize the impact we have on the people that are closest to us, mainly. And for us, like right now, I mean, we are interacting with our families and friends, but mostly our direct family, like raising our child. Like
Always inspiring somebody, whether it be.
So
Mhm.
that's basically like, and that was really helpful for me to realize, okay, like, not like, it's still important, and for those that are able to, and whether they have to or able to be out there as frontline healthcare workers, all those positions, like those are very valuable and are important, have been important, and are still important. But for me personally, it was just because we are at a place, we were able to, like, I'm able to stay at home with Tasha and grow, and my daughter is named Tasha, and take care of her from home. Prior to this quarantine and everyone staying home, I have been able to, and so just that again, I'm taking care of myself, so that by taking care of myself, I'm able to take care of her better and help her become a whole healthy, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy. I'm not in control of physical health much more than nutrition and being active, I guess, outside. But just like these small steps of even teaching her how to process her emotions as I'm learning how to do that, and giving her space. And I am not doing that well. I will say I struggle.
We ups and downs, and there's nobody. If there's a parent watching out there, or if you have multiple kids or whatever, and you are trying to think that you're doing everything, like, that's just wrong. That, like, there is not one parent that is not dealing with something. So you're
So,
not alone there.
yeah. And no, and I realize that, like, I'm part of having community. I realize that, like, by speaking up, by asking for prayer, like, it's just, I didn't realize this like right away, but like just changing the trajectory for my family by even helping my daughter process her emotions, crying together, praying together, like all these things, like, and then asking for forgiveness. Like she doesn't understand most of the time what's going on. But like she's starting to more so as she gets closer to 2. But when she was less than that, but it was more for me to have that practice of I messed up, and I'm sorry, and just like modeling like how to ask for forgiveness, because no one, like, yeah, like you were saying, like no one is perfect, and I mess up often, and I ask for apology often. Not, and I don't mean that as that's there is a place for discipline. I understand that too. But that's separate. Like there's, I mean, or I don't know if it's separate, but like there's two separate things in that. And so in terms of inspired action, like I am hoping that work helps my daughter, but then also the people that we talk with, whether it's like right now via technology, but then the people that we spend time with, one day in person, but even like socially distanced and stuff like that. We try to do life prior to this current quarantine. But yeah.
There's a podcast that I listen to, and it's by Judy Holler, and she has a podcast called Yes and the whole idea of that is she has she says celebrate failure. And use it. And so every day I have her journal, her calendar, and every day at the end of the day, it says, did I fail today? Yes or no? And
I love that.
And if yes, we say, woohoo, what did we learn from it? Yeah. And so it's true. We have, if we're going to grow, we have to fail forward, grow forward, heal forward. It's,
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, we talked about this, like, pretty sure last week about the mindset book that my Jin recommended to me to read. And it took a very long time because I'm like, reading all these other ones and I'm not focused.
Me too. Like, that's the job.
Yeah, like, and that whole idea of there's two different types of mindsets, and the mindset of accepting failure as a growth opportunity is radical.
It really
it is radical, and I struggle with that. We all have both types of mindsets of like failure, and growth. This depending on different aspects of like whether it's work or family or like different aspects of our like lives. But I reading that it finally internalized it for me. It's something like these are things that my husband has been working on himself like for years, and he's like encouraged me to do the same. But at the same time, I think everyone has a different part of their journey that they like they're on. Like we're all anyway.
It's true. We have to surround it's important that we surround ourselves with people that want to help us with that mindset.
Yeah. But we have to be ready. We have to be ready.
And we have to be ready. And there are, there are other communities that help. Like I'm with the community. We meet 3 times a week on Zoom, and there's a mindset coach on there. So I'm purposefully putting myself in this community, and it's helping in many different ways. But in this one particular way, I mean, just to even have one day a week set aside where we're like talking about mindset and working on our own mindset and all of that. It's incredibly important. So it's good for you. That's awesome. And look how dark it is behind me. I haven't even turned on the lights.
I know, I had to like close the blinds because the sun was so.
I'm debating whether to turn on the light or to just let it go, but we'll do one more.
Right.
So I'm curious, because we're going to wrap it up here, but what does your name mean? Did you ever look that up?
Yeah. So I didn't get a chance to confirm. So I have a middle name that's Korean, but I was told at one point by my mom what it actually meant, but I don't remember. I remember her name, what it means, but that doesn't. But like not.
What about Tasha?
But my first name, Rachel, it means you. I think I'm pronouncing it right. You, like EWE, as in a sheep, and which, or female, I guess a female sheep. And I think growing up, I was kind of like, oh, that's like it means sheep. Well, that's like not like, it's like anticlimactic. Like, okay, I'm like, what? Like, well, great. And I'm named after a relative on my dad's side of the family, because it is my dad's side of the family is Jewish, and is also a Jewish name, and obviously an Old Testament name too. And what I've come though to realize is that, especially more recently, like when I say recently, like in the past few weeks, the Bible study I'm a part of is going through John, and in John, and that's one of the Gospels in the Bible, and it talks about the Good Shepherd, and the Good Shepherd is Jesus, but the Good Shepherd takes care of his sheep. The sheep hear.
That just gave me chills. That's awesome.
The sheep hear his voice. The shepherd knows the sheep. The sheep follow the shepherd that they know. The sheep don't follow. Because we hear all these things. I've heard many a sermon where like sheep are stupid. It's not really a nice thing to be like, oh, I'm a sheep too. But I love it because I know my shepherd's voice and I follow him, and he knows me. Mm-hmm. And he gives me eternal life. Mm-hmm. I will never perish, and no one will snatch me out of his hand. And that like brings me great comfort. And even the idea of like the fact that like sheep need to be guided, like, yeah, like just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. Like I just need to be told. Like I know I know a lot of people like to do things their own way, and in good ways. Like, I mean, there's bad ways too, but like in good ways. I love being told, just tell me what to do, within reason, in good things.
Yeah.
But so just being like guided and directed and knowing like, oh, so that's what I don't know. It's a comforting thing for me.
That's great. I did not know that about you. See, it's so awesome to learn what our names mean.
Yeah.
And I just had a friend in our community group who actually just had a baby, a dear friend of mine, or ours, and they were talking about their new baby's names, because they're originally from Nigeria. And so this child has five names that made it to the list. There's even more, but then there's like, they had the ceremony and 5 of them made it to the ceremony, and it's awesome. You have a special name, and it's just like so amazing. And I just find it interesting because in so many different cultures, there's different, like I've talked to a lot of people that have never even known what their name means. Mm-hmm. And here this child, this new beautiful child, has so many names, but 5, right? 5 made it to the ceremony. And I'm just like, that is just so beautiful. And names my name means beloved, and I got it tattooed on my leg when I was going through a hard time. And so, it was my reminder for, I might be God. It's like God was saying, like, your name means beloved, but you're my beloved, and I will always be, I will always love you, and you will, always love me. So yeah, so I think it's really awesome. So how can people find you, Rachel? What do you want to leave us? Is there anything else you want to leave us with as we close out this awesome time that we've had?
I have nothing else right. Like it's just like it all left me. But I am so glad that we got to do this, and we got to just chat another week. This has been really wonderful.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. That I know there's a few people that have watched. If you're watching, no, and Rachel, this is awesome. You're so funny.
People are watching. Like,
people are
watching. And thank you for whoever's watching. I mean, this is like I'm honestly, it has been, even saying yes to Amy, I struggle with the idea like that my story is worth telling, that even aspects of it, and just to be like, okay, well, everyone has a story that's worth telling. So just to like kind of be like, okay, let's just do it. And give the rest to God. Because I am like, whether you see it or not, my heart is hammering. My face is very warm. So thank you.
Rachel, you are such an amazing person. You really are. And I appreciate you in so many ways. And I appreciate your authenticity, your vulnerability with us, and just sharing what's on your heart. And yes, every story does matter. And I am so happy to allow you to shine today in this space, in this community. But people find you, are you on?
So it's funny. To me, this is really funny, but you can find me on Facebook or Goodreads. I have no idea how you can find me on Goodreads. Like I don't know how the search function works. Just I say that just because recently a friend tried to find me, and we were both like, I don't know how this thing works, which is ironic because as a librarian, that was all I did. But I am on Goodreads. If you can find me, great. Maybe you have to Facebook friend me first, and you can find me on Facebook. The thing with Facebook is there is I probably am not exaggerating. There are like a bajillion Rachel Lees. So, but my maiden name is on there, and my maiden name is Goldberg. So if you type in Rachel Goldberg Lee or Rachel Lee Goldberg or some variation, you should be able to find me, because when I think when I looked it up, I came up as in the one and only. I mean, I'm sure there might be more. Who knows? But yeah. That narrows down the pool.
That's awesome.
A helpful tidbit if you are trying to find.
Yeah, you can also find Rachel right here in the Modern Maker community. So if anything resonated with you, or if you're watching the replay, please let us know that you replayed and that you watched and heard Rachel's story. Feel free to share it out if you knew anybody that could be inspired or encouraged tonight. So happy Friday, everybody. It is the weekend now, and I probably should turn some lights on back here.
It is not for us.
That's right. We live in the future still.
Or no, you are our future. We are the past.
That's so funny. Well, thanks, everybody. And we just are so happy that you took the time to spend with us. And Rachel, thank you so much. And I will talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you again.